Today, I'm honored to welcome Jess Collins to Emotional Healing for Christian Women. Jess is a dedicated minister, an accredited pastor, and founder of Online Bible College. It's actually an online platform created to equip God's people with deeper level of scripture, spiritual formation, and leadership training. Jess brings a passion for spiritual education, discipleship, and helping believers live out their faith with clarity and purpose. Jess' heart is to see lives transformed by God's word. Women who step into destiny, purpose, and healthy relationships that is grounded in Christ. Jess, is such a blessing to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on today's podcast, and I'd like to hear a lot of your story and wisdom, and I believe a lot of our audience would like to hear that as
well. I thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor to be in this podcast, but also to speak to so many women that are currently tuning in. I really believe that as women, we're not designed to stand alone, but we are designed to stand together, and through that there is more strength. So thank you so much for hosting me today. It's an honor, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Thank you so much, Jess. We'll just go right in. I'll ask you questions around your faith, and we just have that chat. So please share with me, Jess, your journey with faith, how you sensed God's calling you into ministry, and what led you to establish the Online Bible College.
Thank you for that question. I grew up in a Christian household. In fact, my grandparents were missionaries, sold all they had when they were in their 20s, and they got on a boat, and went to Thailand to, I guess, plant their lives there. And that's where my dad grew up. And he met my mom then in Hong Kong, so I'm half Chinese. And we've had a ministry both in Thailand and also in Hong Kong. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot of my early life. But it wasn't until I was more or less 13 years old that I really experienced the voice of God in my life for the first time. And during that time, for those who have experienced the leading of the Holy Spirit, it was the stirring that I couldn't shake that was within my heart, partnered by a soft whisper. And it was during that time that the Lord spoke two things in my life. Number one, I was going to be in global mission. And the second one was that I was going to work with my dad. So as you can imagine, as a 13-year-old girl, I wanted nothing less than working with my dad. I thought it was boring. But when he got diagnosed with cancer when I was 18, it was terminal cancer, I thought to myself, I know he's not going to pass away, because if the Lord spoke into my life at the age of 13, and that word shaped the trajectory of my life, then, he's not going to go. God's going to heal him. So I held on to that truth. And as he started to deteriorate, for those who have journeyed with somebody through cancer, you know that the multiple rounds of chemotherapy really take a toll on their body. You know that usually cancer is accompanied by things like weight loss. He wasn't eating, but we were praying through it, and we were believing, because we felt the Lord was going to heal him. So you can imagine my shock when he didn't get healed, when he did pass away. And I remember questioning to myself, Lord, did I hear you correctly? And if I didn't hear you back then properly, then maybe this whole time that I've been following you, maybe I haven't heard you properly at all. So I did go through a period of wrestling with God, questioning my ability to hear the voice of the Lord. So fast track, to where we are now. There's been a bunch of experiences that have shaped me, but now I'm at the helm of Online Bible College. So Online Bible College was actually started by my father in 1998 because he believed that one day the internet would be the greatest vehicle to the nations. So with that vision, he started the college, and when he passed away, the college was then managed by my grandparents for a duration. And when I got married, it was given to me to steward. So that's a little bit of the history of where we came from. But where are we now as a college? We have over 70,000 registered students from over 190 nations. And we've also created pathways for students in their local area to plant localized Bible colleges in their own language according to their own culture. So we've got about 14 of them around the world. And that is my heart and joy, is actually to raise quality leaders who are Bible-based, relationally attuned, and unity-driven. So I believe very strongly that as the body of Christ, we are designed to work together. And when God looks at the church, he sees one church, not multiple denominations. He sees one. And if we want to see change in the world, there is a need to come together despite our differences. So these are the kind of leaders that I want to raise. And inclusive of that are a lot of women. In fact, some of our campuses, there's more women than men. I believe God's doing something, and it's about raising everyday people from all walks of life, taking hold of whatever calling God has put on their life, but also stepping forward in boldness to pursue that calling, whether it's starting a business or whether it's working in a church or whether it's representing Christ in the marketplace. We're all called to be missionaries in our local area because every Christian is designed to carry the light of Christ. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess, for sharing that story. I love the way that you've redefined the mission work.
Yeah.
I think that as a child growing up in church as well, I used to imagine mission to be quite differently. Like you have to take all your family with you when you're going away into some remote place. And that's what mission was all about.
No.
I guess it's evolved over time, and you have truly embodied what everyday mission looks like, really. Like, and I'm sorry about your dad's passing on, and I'm truly inspired by the work you are doing with Online Bible College. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And I think sometimes the way God answers prayer is not the way that we want to. You see, I expected my dad to get better, but really,
Yeah,
right now I am actually working with him. It might not be
yeah.
the way that I wanted, but I am. So, and it's through Online Bible College. I am in global mission, not in the traditional sense,
Yeah.
and I am working with him, not side by side physically, but I'm carrying on his vision and mission.
That's so beautiful. And for him to have the vision that one day the internet will be that vehicle is so amazing. It
Yeah,
just shows how God can plant visions in our hearts
it's so true.
when we are open. So, as someone doing faith based work,
I grew up in a third culture environment where I lived in more than one area. So when I was younger, I was born in a fishing village in Hong Kong, and shortly after we moved to Thailand. We moved then to Australia, only to go back to Hong Kong, then back to Thailand. So my childhood was split between many worlds. And as a result, the positive thing is it builds really good cultural intelligence. But as a child, you don't know how to navigate that space. As a child, going into new schools, I think I've attended over six different schools. Going into different schools, being an outsider looking into a culture that you don't quite understand yet was very difficult. And also in many of my childhood experiences, I was either the only Asian or the only Caucasian because I'm half Asian. So I experienced it on both ends. There was a bit of teasing and bullying, especially in my early childhood years. And I think as a result, I did actually get quite close to my family, because when you anchor yourself, usually people, of course, as you know, anchor themselves in different, whether it's things or people or friendship groups or family. When your world is constantly changing, you anchor yourself in the things that are consistent. So my family was quite consistent, but I am very grateful for the experiences that I have had through my journey, whether it's going to school in Hong Kong or moving to Darwin.
I'll just go in and ask you a bit around love and romance. Yeah. So, what expectations or challenges have you experienced in romantic relationships or love or marriage while walking in faith and healing? And I usually ask, how have you balanced vulnerability and wisdom in love? It could be around dating before you got married, or yeah, just a little bit for our audience to take away. I think most times, particularly young people, look at marriages and couples they admire and go like, surely everything must have gone well for them. They didn't go through what I went through. So I usually ask so they know that relationships do take work.
Oh, yes, they do. Oh, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Growing up, I had
Yeah.
how do I put it? Our family had strict rules around dating. We were told that it's good to wait for the right one, that God has the right one in mind for you. And
Correct.
yeah, and it's so very true. So for me, it was reasonably popular with some guys at one stage of my life. And I remember thinking to myself that I just couldn't see it working out in future. So I remember there was a guy that I really, really liked in high school. I liked him for probably a good 5-6 years. He was smart, charismatic, intelligent, but he wasn't a Christian. So I knew that it wouldn't work out. In my heart, our values were just a little bit too different, but it didn't stop me from liking him. So I did. I did it in secret. I remember going to school early just because I knew that his bus was also an early bus. But at the same time, I never pursued a relationship, only in my imagination as a teenager. So I remember liking him for a good, at this particular point, for about 3 years. And then one day he started showing attention to me. He started talking to me, and I heard from some other people that he was interested. And I remember at that point, for the wrestle, because he was a very good looking young man. And I wrestled with the idea of the fact that could I compromise on the fact that he didn't love Jesus? Could I, maybe in future, I can bring him to Christ, which I've seen a lot of relationships. It does happen. But it was during that time that the Lord spoke to me about, I remember it clearly. He said Israel wanted a king, but it wasn't the king in which I had planned. So, as you know, within the context of Israel, they wanted a king and God gave them King Saul, but it was through David, King David, that he was destined to have, Jesus. So during that time, I pretended like I didn't like him when he liked me, and I suffered and I suffered. But I'm really glad that I didn't pursue him, because after he stopped liking me, the most painful experience of my life at that particular time, he ended up dating half the girls in my school or in my. So I could have had my heart completely broken, but I decided not to. So fast track, I met my husband in Australia. This was in 2005. He came at a time when I actually felt like I lost everything. So I was doing ministry work overseas in Thailand, experienced a little bit of heartache there, came back to Australia because I needed emergency surgery on my spine. So I damaged my lower back, my L4-5S1, and ended up having to do a fusion surgery on multiple levels. During that time, he came into my life. He cut fruit for me at the hospital, and we ended up getting married about 2-3 years later. And now we've got we got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, 2 daughters, and we are happily married. But I want to say that marriage is not smooth sailing, even though I believe I married the right one. But even with the right one, it's taken a lot of work to get to where we are. And one of the things that my husband and I agreed upon when we first got married was that we would every couple of years actually go into therapy. And it's not because we're falling apart, but because it's actually the healthy thing to do. So we've done quite a few rounds of therapy over the years, and by the grace of God, we're doing well.
Thank you so much for sharing that story and just sharing it unfiltered. So, if you're listening and you probably are struggling with having a friend, you like someone who is not a believer in Christ, I hope Jess's story inspires you. And particularly, I think that when it comes to choosing a spouse, it's interesting to realize that we are custodians of God's vision. For example, in your story, like you're leaving your father's legacy, actually. I'm not sure if it occurred to you that you couldn't even just marry anyone you thought you liked. heaven had to choose who will partner with you to live that vision and to bring it to fruition. So I think that when we as believers keep it at the back of our minds that our lives are not ours, and when it comes to choosing a life partner, God has to actually be the one to choose a partner. Now, I'm not saying there wouldn't be chemistry, but I think those who have stayed long in marriage will know that it takes more than chemistry to have a thriving, fulfilling marriage. Because, particularly for women, probably, I'm not sure a lot is being talked about women who are called to ministry, as it were, and how important it is that their husbands agree into that vision, because if it was the other way around, it would have been probably a lot easier. You just joined and you're a pastor's wife, which is quite common. But when it's the other way around, whoever is the husband really has to be picked by God. Really. Yeah. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I agree as well. Just on what you were saying before, I actually strongly believe that every Christian is in full-time ministry. So it doesn't matter whether you are working in a bank or working in retail or at a church, you're actually you're called to represent Christ where you're at. And I encourage you not to pull those two sides apart. We are actually representing Christ in whatever sphere and with whatever skills that God has given you. To your point, Marv, absolutely. You do need to find somebody that is united in what God has called you to. And I think sometimes we expect ministry to be absolutely side by side together. So if you're serving at a church, you both have to serve in a church. But the reality is you are called to work together, but it doesn't have to be in the same field. And that being said, my husband is actually working in finance, but he's fully 100% behind me and supporting me in what I do. He's such a champion, especially in moments, especially as a CEO, you feel overwhelmed because you're encountering situations that are beyond your own capability. And that's very natural for anybody in leadership. But to have somebody that's willing to stand alongside you is a beautiful thing. And you don't get there overnight. It's actually through time, work, dedication. And for me and my husband, I think something that I very much value is that we actually have a really good foundation in friendship, which is something that we always fall back on, especially as time goes on and we're dealing with little children that are running around everywhere. We have friendship to fall back on. Every relationship is different and there's strengths that everyone has and also weaknesses that we need to work on as well. And that's the journey. You journey together, you grow together in the Lord.
That's so beautiful. So, so beautiful. Talking about friendship, I'm going to move back towards women friendship and friendships, sisters, and spiritual community. What role has friendships and spiritual community played in your healing and your faith journey? How have you navigated any pain or betrayal in relationships among sisters or friends?
Yeah. That's a very good question. As I mentioned before, when I had my back surgery, just prior, I was actually working in Thailand. And I was working with family and friends, and we were very much knee-deep doing community work, ministry work with the Thai people, but also some work across the Thai-Burmese border. So we went across the border into Myanmar, did some emergency aid, ran Christmas programs, that sort of thing. And people would expect when you are doing ministry, when you're on a mission trip, for example, people always come back with the power stories where God moved in a miraculous way and a lot of people get saved, right? And that is true. God does move when you step out in faith. But for me, it was that stint that I was overseas with family and in Thailand is probably one of the most painful experiences of my entire life. I never felt more misunderstood. I felt betrayed. But not only that, there was a hopelessness because when there is a problem, you look for solutions to solve it, right? And for me, I was trying to think of solutions. What can I actually do to mitigate this issue? It was quite a toxic environment at the time. And no matter what I did, no matter how hard I prayed and cried, I remember crying, going to the tennis courts and just looking up at the stars and just crying and asking God, why am I even here? So that was a very difficult time. And if it wasn't for my surgery, I would be probably in a bigger mess. So God did lead me out of that using a very unusual way, which was spinal surgery of all things. But through that, I did meet my husband and I went through a season of healing. And it's actually taken a lot of time because when you are in a season where you do everything in your physical power to try make it better, but it's still not enough. You still get misunderstood. You still encounter opposition, sometimes spiritual, but sometimes also human as well. It does hurt you. It does cut deep. So I would say that I've been on a journey, a long journey of healing, but I just want to encourage those that are listening. I see it as an onion, right? People think sometimes it's a one snap, you're healed. And I believe that God actually does do that. I believe it, but it's not always the case. And for me, it's almost like an onion where God peels one layer and deals with that layer and you feel fine for a while, only for you to be triggered. And then he peels back another layer and he heals another layer. Do you get what I mean, Marv? So it's an ongoing thing. But each time he peels a layer, it's painful and it requires more healing, more restoration, but you're getting closer to the center. And that's what I feel when it comes to emotional healing, is that I started off bruised, but God has peeled off a layer, dealt with that layer. But then with another trigger, God deals with another layer. And with another trigger, he deals with another layer. So I am hoping, Marv, that in future I'll get to the core, but it has been a journey. And we're not without our experiences, but giving it to God, God can actually use those experiences to actually provide so much depth and wisdom. And what I find fascinating, Marv, is as a pastor and also as a CEO, those experiences, those wounds, although not fully healed, they have given more flavor and insight into how to journey with other people. So that's what I find really beautiful about experiences. It's not always good, but it provides depth and understanding and care so that you can journey with others that are going through similar things. So I thank God for those experiences, as painful as they were.
Yeah.
But it is an ongoing journey. And I think, it's not about the snap of the finger, although it does happen. It's about constant submission and also the boldness to actually look within and to do the work, I think is another thing, because we can pretend like it's not there. But I think it takes a lot of boldness and self-actualization to know that, hey, we believe in Jesus. He's made us new, but there is still work to be done. That's an ongoing process.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing this. And you're right. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination. That's what I believe. We don't ever get to a point where we feel like, wow, now I feel so good. I don't feel triggered anymore. I'm so good now. Yeah. No, I don't believe that. I believe that, like you rightly said, like an onion, like a cabbage, and I think one of the reasons is because I'm not sure a lot of us are conscious that we're evolving.
Yeah.
Every time in life we experience an event, it doesn't leave us the same way we were before we experienced that. So our identity definitely evolves because the experience, for example, if one has experienced loss, any kind of loss, your worldview changes completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The values are adjusted. Like suddenly you realize what is important, what is not important, and you just make adjustments and probably shift and prioritize things differently. Now, that is going to affect all other relationships around, from intimate relationships to parenting to friendships to extended family. And it's therefore normal that, be it sisters and sisterhood and friendships and community, there will always be that shift because the relationships around us, if they are not evolving, making the adjustment, or sometimes it's us, people move on and probably leave us, or we move on and leave because the worldview changed. The event shaped the identity. And all of these things occur in the subconscious level. Like you're not aware of it. Suddenly you're not in the mood to do some events or activities. Now you're thinking of different activities. And what that means is the preference is changing. So conversations are often built around preferences and
So
values.
true.
And once that occurs, there is a shift. So I think that the more we're aware of this, and I'm so happy we had this conversation because I'm not sure a lot of these conversations are held. And it looked to me like there is a demonization of if you don't have friends or many sister friends and community, maybe something is wrong with you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Particularly if you're introverted. It's a different dynamic.
Oh, yes. For myself, if I'm totally honest, I have thing, I don't even know what to call it, where if there's too many sounds happening at once, it can come at me all at once. And that's part of my neurodiverse makeup. But that does actually come into the context of relationships as well, especially when a lot of people do like to meet in public places. It takes a lot of energy actually to sometimes shut these sound, like the noise
Correct.
at once. So that's always been a little bit of a thing that I wrestle with when it comes to relationships, and also the stigma around if you are somebody who is introverted. For me, I would say I'm very close to the middle. So I can be extroverted, but I definitely do feel the need to process internally. So I can be extroverted, but internal processor. And when it comes to friendship environments, like you said, there's a lot of stigma around relationships. And for me, as somebody who's grown up in that third cultured world, I do, quite honestly, and this is a very honest podcast. I don't know how I'd feel about it afterwards. But there is I have felt a lot of pressure in the past to make deep friendships. Deep friendships, I believe, in theory, in my mind, just through reading articles, just by understanding the way that God has created us and understanding how our social psychology is at work. It is important to have friends. So I felt that as a pressure. But for me, I think growing up, feeling a little bit like an outsider into social situations, it was actually quite a difficult space to navigate. And the only way that I could fit in was actually to put on a mask, which I think a lot of people do experience, especially in social circles, whether it's work or school or even sometimes family. But for myself, I did feel that for a lot of my life. So now I'm on a journey of actually taking off the mask and just being myself. But I think finding, like you mentioned, finding valuable relationships, people that can cheer you on and like you and appreciate you for who you are without having tall poppy syndrome, which is a major thing. And especially if you're a woman in leadership and young, quite often, through my experiences, there's been quite a lot of tall poppy syndrome at play as well, which makes social circles a little bit difficult to navigate. But there are a couple of people whom I trust very dearly and I can come to when things are hard, that I can talk to. But for me, and for perhaps for other people, it wasn't a very natural thing. It's something that I had to be really intentional about. But navigating through the pressure of knowing that I need deep friendships versus actually being comfortable with people that are safe, I think has been a real transition in these recent years.
Thank you so much for touching on this and the risks around the tall poppy syndrome, like you described. And hearing that from a CEO like yourself, I hope that other people can go like, what probably navigating this experience and normalize their challenges with having. Could you tell me what deep friendship means? How would you define that? I've not heard that quite often. Did you mean close friendships?
Yeah, I think not just close friendships, but I think there are some people that I've heard the term used before called soul friend.
All right.
And that is somebody who gets you. And I think the word is probably seen. You are seen for all your complexities, for all your strengths, but also your weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
And finding somebody that's actually okay with that champions you. So when things are great, they actually are your biggest cheerleader. But when things are hard, they will just sit with you and listen. And I think those friends are the friends that are hard to find because there's a lot of, socially, there's a lot of people around me and I would call them friends, but it's different. It's different when you have somebody that you can trust with the deeper parts of yourself. And that's something that I think is incredibly valuable and hard to find, actually, because it's actually a mutual thing. And as a pastor, I have found in the past sometimes a lot of relationships, I'm the one that's doing the giving, and it's a little bit unbalanced, if that makes sense, because I'm seen as somebody that's in that spiritual authority space. So when we come together, we might get along perfectly. We might talk about other things other than church, but there is still a disparity. And I find that I'm the one that ends up taking a counselor role in their lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for that. But finding somebody that you can completely be open with is very, very special. And I think I found somebody like that. But like I said earlier, it's a journey. It's a journey. And you also need to be able to let your walls down as well, and be your authentic self before them as well. And it's a mutual dance between the two.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful said. Thank you for making me feel seen and validated, because like yourself as well, I'm a counselor, I'm a social worker. I do. So it took me a while to really understand if I am engaging with another client or I'm engaging with a friend. And to step back a bit and go like, no, I don't want to be in another counseling session. I just want to be myself. I just want to relax. And so I think that might be common to really I call them high achieving women, really women in leadership, particularly who are quite clear on their vision, and they're just making efforts in that area. I find that seems to be a common thing. I wonder though if such women can then meet on that level. You know what I mean? Where there is that interdependent connection. And one of the things that I'm beginning to realize is that I wondered if women can really have deep, close friendships if they are in healthy marriages. Did you get what I mean?
You mean deep, healthy relationships with their spouse, or are you talking about external?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and this is open for conversation. I'm happy to have this on the air. One of the things that I feel women connect deeply over in conversation sometimes might be fallouts of what isn't going well in the marriage. You know what I mean?
I get you.
So
bonding.
it's easy to misinterpret the intensity in that friendship to be called friendship bonding. You know what I mean?
I do know it.
Whereas it's actually, if both women were in healthy marriages, that intensity and that conversation, or what it is that binds, may not necessarily be that strong, deep. Therefore, what other conversations might women be having apart from relationships in their marriages, And therefore, if they're having those light conversations, maybe vision, work, career, will it still be that deep? Do you get my question?
Yeah. So what you are saying is, if we take away the trauma dumping when it comes to relational issues between your spouse, if you strip all that stuff away, what's left? Is the friendship actually deep, or are you guys just offloading and finding common pain points to actually relate to other people? Yeah, I get your question. I think for myself and my husband, like I mentioned, we've got quite a good foundation in friendship, and it doesn't mean that we're perfect, but it just means that we've got a lot of common interests outside of being lovey-dovey. But I think when you are at a healthy space and you connect with somebody else in a healthy space, you do uplift each other. Finding friends who is at the same stage as you, that actually lifts you up and draws out the best in you. And I think just like environments, I think everybody's been in a work environment where at one stage where things are not that healthy. It might be a little bit toxic, or there might be a personality that might clash with you, or whatever the case may be. What that draws out of you is not just a hurtful experience. Often that draws out of you some negative aspects of yourself as well. So I would say finding friendships that actually are healthy for you is also important. The danger is sometimes coming together with somebody with also hurts and pains, and you go feel understood for a moment, but you get into this cycle of pain, if that makes sense, where you kind of stuck together. So, but then again, that's still friendship, right? That's still friendship. But I think godly friendship, finding people that can help you to step up, speak truth when needed, is another thing. Not just appease you and what you're going through and empathize, that's important, but having somebody that is willing to journey with you and speak truth, that is so valuable, because the temptation is to find people that agree with you. It's lovely having people agree with you. It makes you feel good, right? And it validates all the frustrations you might have towards your marriage or whatever the circumstance is. But finding people that can actually speak truth into your life is another thing. And therefore you grow strength to strength, sharpening one another.
Thank you. The next question, what is your vision for how Christian women can heal first and then step into healthy love, whether romantically or with sisters or in a community? What practical steps or habits would you recommend to a woman who is tired of repeating relational pain? Yeah. In terms of practical steps, like some would say go out for events more often, maybe. But then again, I don't know if everyone is open to going out for events again. Yeah, but I think habits should be developed personally first and then meeting people that have similar interests. For example, if you like swimming, you might meet someone who likes swimming as well in the pool. Or if you like dance, you might meet other women who like dancing as well, or sports, whichever way it is. And it doesn't always have to be built around faith.
No.
What I mean by that is the point of contact does not necessarily always have to be in church. You know what I mean? I remember meeting a beautiful lady who's passed on now. I met her in school. We just relocated to Australia and my children's school. And we had this school event where I'm not sure what the name of that event was, but families all came together. There was some eating and meeting teachers and all that. And she looked at me and got like, "Are you a Christian?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she was so spot on. Like, she said, "Yeah, I could tell." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. I didn't think that I wore that on my forehead or somewhere, you know?" And we then went on to build quite a beautiful relationship. She had cooking classes for the school. So, we joined. She introduced me to where to shop for organic fruits, organic vegetables.
Oh, nice.
She also was very passionate about gardening. And she taught me a few things about gardening. Like I said, I was new in Australia and I didn't really know. And she actually introduced us to her church. Their church became the first church we really went to. And she was a leader of a friendship group, even though I wasn't part of that local friendship group. But her family was very helpful with our settling in. So the kids and our kids were in the same school. And it was quite helpful. And thinking back now, I think she really embodied what I would say that safe women friendship.
Awesome.
She had, from what I could see, she and her husband get along very well. They were so amazing together. And she was supportive in practical terms. Women making friendship. It doesn't always have to be that you meet in church. You know what I mean?
And I think you're right. And it sounds like that was a real divine appointment between you and somebody else. And I've experienced those as well, where you meet somebody and it just feels right. You know that right timing, right place. And it really shapes the trajectory of your next steps in future as well, because you form something that's quite deep. And that's what it sounds like you had as well, Marv. So that's really wonderful.
Yeah. All right. This is where we end today's podcast. Thank you so much, Jess. Where can people find you? What socials? What contact?
You can find our college on www.onlinebiblecollege.com. We offer 24 free courses online, which is about building your faith, and we offer a diploma in biblical studies as well. In terms of social media, you can find me at Jess_X Collins on social media, Instagram.
Okay, I'll look for you on Instagram. I'm not quite active on Instagram, more on TikTok, LinkedIn.
I know nothing about TikTok, and LinkedIn, I have a profile, but I'm not very active. So you're welcome to connect with me
Yeah.
there, but not as
Yeah.
active.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, and Jess. I hope you would be happy to come again and we have other conversations around faith
Yeah,
and women. Thank you so much.
it's my pleasure.
Bye for now, everyone.